Somehow, the Nothing phone is actually good. It might be the quality 120Hz OLED screen that we get on here, or maybe it's the cool looking design. Or maybe Nothing figured out how to cut corners and actually make a good budget device. After all, this phone was $300. Hello everyone, this is Matt from Real World Review, and let's just keep talking about this phone. Now, I've owned this phone for over a year, but used it for a couple months. Firstly, the iPhone looking phone actually reminds me of an iPhone. That said, this retailed for way less than an iPhone 12, which is what it resembles, just with the screen of the iPhone 13 Pro Max. That screen is a 1080p 6.5 inch 120Hz OLED panel that has a tiny hole punch for the front camera. While it isn't perfect, it is very good, being plenty bright at about 500 nits, maxing out at about 1200 nits, but also giving us an enjoyable and vibrant image for watching videos or viewing photos taken with this okay camera. And of course, we are going to talk about the camera later. We have to, because this thing has a recording light. This is covered by Gorilla Glass 5, though it does come with a screen protector that I highly recommend leaving on the phone if you can. There is an under-screen fingerprint scanner that seems to work well, though I rely on Face Unlock to get me into this phone. That said, Face Unlock works in about 90% of my situations. There is a budget processor in here, per se, but that Snapdragon 778G Plus chip is pretty robust. Pair this with the screen's refresh rate, regular apps seem to run as you would like, even when gaming. Heavy games will obviously struggle, and background processing might show the true limitations of this chip, but honestly, this phone feels more responsive than I remember. I'm running Android 13 or Nothing OS 2.0.5, and as I have stated before, this system is solid for me, even when I was using the betas in the past. As of writing this review, I'm yet to see Nothing OS 2.5 or Android 14 beta arrive on this phone, just on the superior Nothing Phone 2. And of course, we have editing me to come in and say, finally, we get Android 14, but don't worry, not much has changed. One thing I have noticed is that I still can't figure out how to get the glyphs to work on the timer. Not really sure what's going on there. Also, with software, you get the whole thing where it'll play music and it will have the glyphs flash randomly. I thought that it did it on beat, but it seems to kind of be random. It's a cool idea for music, but it works for more than just music. It works on YouTube videos, it works on pretty much anything that makes noise, and it's kind of frustrating, and it has to make noise, so it won't just flash even if you're watching a video on silent. It has to make noise, but it just does the full flash, or whatever you have it set up for. It's a cool idea for music, but I wish that there was a toggle to exclude certain apps or do anything other than turn it on or off. Like, that's the only feature that we have. It's a very iPhone style feature where you just have on and off, that's it, no customizability. Kind of weird coming from this phone, kind of weird coming from Android 14, but that's it. There's also an update log, but in my day-to-day life, I don't really notice too much of a difference besides what I just mentioned. Still, it's nice to have Android 14 here. But the 3/4 years of updates means that this phone will get Android version updates until at least July 2025, or Android 15, and security patches until July 2026. While this means next year will end, it doesn't mean that it's the end of the line for this phone, as sites like XDA developers are filled with threads of ROMs that can be installed on this phone, and I would assume that development won't just give up. At least, I hope not. Of course, we do have tap to wake, double tap to sleep, and an always on display, but the last one is a little bit confusing. Sure, you can see notifications, but isn't that what the back is for? With almost 1,000 little LEDs, the glyph system is what makes the Nothing phone so special. This time around, we get a composer and finally the option to use it as a flashlight, something that makes sense, but then makes you realize how awkward it is. It's not as bright as a regular flashlight, which is fine, but the lights are just white. This can also be fine, but when you use it as a fill light for the camera, it's definitely not the most flattering light for skin tones. Still, I think that this is a cool thing for others to see, but if you want to see it, you have to flip the phone over all the time, and hopefully you saw that notification when it happened. Pulsing feature would be cool to show missed calls, texts, and etc. Maybe in Nothing OS 3.0, I don't know. There are some apps that apparently take advantage of it, but this is a real-world review, and most of the time my phone would be in my pocket or its back would be on the table, so I don't really experience that. I did, however, leave the glyph lights on, and it seems like it stays on for a long time. You just need to make sure that the phone is either moving or the back is facing up. This specific phone that I have is 128GB of UFS 3.1 storage that pairs with 8GB of RAM, but those are both fine for me. I really don't see the need for a 12GB RAM version, but 256GB of storage would be nice. There is no slot for an SD card, but there is a dual SIM slot, which is nice to see because there is no eSIM support. While 5G support in the US is definitely limited on the phone, network connectivity and speeds were never really an issue for me as I'm on T-Mobile. Nothing says that it should work on AT&T and Verizon, though I don't believe that 5G is supported, and I'm not really sure about voice over LTE. Also, AT&T can be stupid restrictive, blocking phones from T-Mobile that are even 5G phones, even if it's the same model that AT&T sold. But that is a whole nother story. This is a strange phone because it's a phone where you won't like it at first, or it seems like a budget phone, but when you use it, it actually feels and works like a premium product. Let's talk about those premium parts. Like I said, the screen is well-rounded as well as the design and storage chip. We get little added in things like slight water resistance being IP53. Okay, obviously that's kind of a joke because it's pointless in my eyes seeing that it will not protect from dust or water getting into the phone. But there are some seals on the phone to at least let some accidents happen. The overall iPhone design is clean and classy, with the see-through back, the iPhone 12 look, but iPhone 14 Plus size. Like the front, the back is Gorilla Glass 5, but I'm yet to really see anyone complain about the back cracking, as well as anyone selling replacement parts for that in the first place. We get Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.2, allowing for superior connection if your carrier doesn't send 5G to this phone. There are dual speakers on this phone, with one facing towards you while the other is on the bottom. The sound is fine and the stereo feel is good enough to say that it is stereo. That said, I would focus on Bluetooth for media consumption. The battery is a decent 4,500 mAh cell, which is kind of in the middle of being a good or bad battery, but the charging options help. We get 33 watts of wired charging with nothing claiming essentially full charging in less than 70 minutes, as well as 15 watts of wireless charging. Not sure what dual charging support means, but it has it, I guess. If you need to share that battery, we do get 5 watts of reverse wireless charging. Maybe dual charging means that you can charge the phone and other products at the same time? With Nothing only having 2 phones, this reminds me of the Essential phone, which is ironic seeing that the founder of Nothing owns Essential as of 2021. Not that that company still exists, but they own the name. This is a classy phone that cuts corners in ways that people ultimately won't care. While there are people that game on their phones, this phone can handle most of them. Running the apps that you want, but also reminding you that if you need the extra power, you're going to spend more than $400 or less on a phone. Just like the cameras on this phone. I'm often reminded by myself that if I want certain things out of a camera, like a real depth of field, I just need to use a real camera. And the Nothing Phone 1 is no different. Now this camera system on paper is awesome. The front camera, not so much, being a 16 megapixel fixed focus sensor, actually being the same IMX471 found in the OnePlus 9 Pro, but also the OnePlus 7 Pro. This 1080p at 30 frames per second camera is, well, not that good. In the right lighting, you can get some usable shots, but video calling is what this is made for, not high quality photos. The main camera is a respectable 50 megapixel focusable sensor that features optical image stabilization, being the same IMX766 that's found in the Zenfone 9 and Zenfone 10. But this is how you can tell that the image signal processor that is used to process these images is not only inferior to the Zenfone Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 chip, but also that Nothing doesn't do the best post-processing. There are definitely lots of extras packed into this, but the image that comes out is what really matters. Then we have the 50 megapixel ultra-wide sensor, which is the Samsung JN1, which is generally used as the main sensor for other phones. That said, it is a nice camera to pair with the main, though it's not exactly the same quality. This does, however, allow for macro shots, as it is a focusable sensor. This means even though there's 2 physical cameras, you actually get 3 out of those sensors, as well as them both being 50 megapixel shots that are binned down to 12.5 or 12.6 megapixels, with the option for 50 megapixel shots out of both cameras. However, those 50 megapixel shots come with limitations of zooming and obviously downgrading of night shots. The video disappoints me, being stable, sure, but also limited to 4K 30 frames per second max, and you can't switch cameras when recording. Having the recording light is a nice touch, but it's kind of weird because the video isn't the main focus on this phone. All of this said, I will definitely let you be the judge of these cameras. Enjoy. For me, not that good, but like I said before, not the reason why I would recommend this phone in the first place. There are so many other phones that you can choose over Nothing. For one, the Samsung S21 would be a superior phone in almost all ways and for almost half the cost when buying used. And for around the same price, you can bump that up to the Samsung S21 Ultra. But you want the design of the Nothing Phone 1 or even the Nothing Phone 2. I guess the real reason for its name is because there's nothing out there like this. We do of course have other phones that do light up on the back, this one being the third phone that I've reviewed where the back lights up, but nothing like this. The weird thing about this phone is that it is a budget phone, but it's also held its value really well for some reason. I like that this phone features 33 watts of charging, but USB 2.0 data speeds is a little bit disappointing. That said, the Asus Zenfone 9 has the same data speeds, and it's definitely more expensive. Is this a bad phone? No. Would I recommend this? Not entirely, but that's just because of the price. Are you someone that actually uses the light up flash on the back of your phone when you get a text? Then this is the same thing times 100, or in this case, about 900. It is definitely a cool phone and a pretty solid start for Nothing, but as it reaches 2 years old, I'm starting to realize that this phone is kind of disposable. I can't find any parts for it, let alone replacements for the battery or even the back glass. For me, the phone doesn't make sense given the price and availability, but there's no other phone like this that features the lights on the back in the same way that Nothing does. And where there is, the performance is definitely ruined because of it. This is a niche phone, but luckily that doesn't make it a terrible phone. And that's my review of how it is using the Nothing phone going into 2024, the phone like nothing else. Okay, dumb joke aside, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and as always, thanks for watching.